Cool.
So when you're defending the first drop as Zerg, like what is your go-to
Defending the
after
first what?
that first drop? Like when the Terran comes with like 2-1-1 or just like 8 Marines and a Widow, or 6 Marines and a Widow Mine, something like that.
Yeah.
What is your priority after you defend the drop?
Okay, so after you defend pressure in general, it's about getting back to what you normally do. So for Zerg especially, right, you've got this rhythm where you either have a preset moment where you build units for safety, or you see something coming and you build units, right? You say, ooh, stop what we're doing, let's build lots of units, let's get in position and defend this. What do you do after that moment is you get back to your normal stuff. So you go back to building workers, getting upgrades, taking more bases, whatever your tech is, whatever your game plan is, you go back to that, right? So Zerg naturally has all these moments of disruption where depending on the amount of pressure your opponent's doing, you're responding by building spore crawlers and sending queens to defend an oracle. You're surrounding some adepts, or you're doing this or that, and yeah, stupid volume control. Yep, fix that, sorry. Yeah, you're kind of doing that, and then you just bounce back into your regular build afterwards. So it's something where, this is where we talk about Zerg being reactive and flexible to your opponent, and why we talk about Zerg having map vision being so important, right? You could have Zerglings to see them coming as soon as possible, so you don't end up going, oh crap, there's units in my base, and I haven't even got the defense. So at high level, what clean defensive Zerg play looks like is basically you see the attack coming, you build units, you've already got the units ready, so you can basically A-move, shut it down. You don't even need to put a lot of attention into it. You don't want them running between your bases, killing workers, and you're frantically trying to defend, because that means you're spending so much APM, you're going to screw up everything else. So a high-level player already has the units, they A-move it, and often while they're defending the pressure, you know what Zerg does? Inject, inject, inject. Build units, build overlords, spread some creep tumors, looks back to check. Yeah, the attack did get cleaned up because I built plenty of units to do it. And that allows you to keep up on everything. Whereas, a lot of people hear this idea of, okay, Zerg is about building the smallest amount of defense necessary and going maximum drones. And it is to a certain extent, but that's peak perfection. That's the ideal Zerg body. You guys might not like it, but that's what the ideal Zerg player looks like. You're not the ideal Zerg player until you're very high level. So you're still learning. So it's better for you to overbuild defense, be able to totally shut down pressure, and focus on your macro as much as possible while defending.
Let's say,
really?
In that sense, yeah, because I don't like, for example, copying Dark, because Dark is playing very much so that he's building minimal amount of defense and like minimal amount of drones. He's like playing extremely safe and somehow he's surviving everything. And I feel like that's really great and crazy to watch, but it's nothing to copy really because of that. It's really hard to keep
I actually disagree with that, because I was helping out I help out a lot of Zergs.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot, but I help out a few Zergs, and usually what I find is that they actually under-drone. And like, I find that a lot of Zergs, they're scared to actually make
that's because they're building units blind though, right? So that's I'm totally with you here, and that's why normally I am talking. Normally I do emphasize the other point, which is that you want to defend with the least minimal units, right? But it's like, once you know a pressure's coming, say it's a 2-1-1. So what I mean by this, and this is really good you brought this up, Captain Phil, because we get some more clarification. You can defend a 2-1-1 with 10 roaches. But I would recommend most players build 15 roaches if they're playing roach play. Which is a little bit of an overcommitment, but it's better to have a few more units so then they can focus on their macro during it, right? The problem most players have with under-droning is they're not playing reactively as Zerg, and their map vision sucks, right? So they're just like, it's 4 minutes into the game, I'm building 12 roaches and 20 Zerglings. And you kind of think, why are you building this many units? Your opponent's actually going 3 command centers. There's nothing aggressive coming your way. They're like, oh, well, sometimes they hit me with Hellbat Cyclone and I need a lot of units to defend that. And you say, but that's not happening in this game. You haven't seen any threat of that. There's no way this could happen in this game, right? And even if it did happen, it wouldn't happen for another minute and a half. But if you see that attack moving out, or you know that's coming, I'm totally okay with them building that many units at the correct time, in the correct situation, right? Being like, yeah, get plenty of units, make sure you're safe, right? But I think most Zerg players end up in this trap where they're like, well, I just build a shit ton. Like it's very common for players to not be confident defending Hellions, right? So how often do we see below Diamond player build 40 Zerglings? Or even in Diamond as well, just like no extra queens, they just build 40 Zerglings. And sometimes they just kind of headbutt into the 6 Hellions and all get roasted, and they go, oh shit, and then they got to build another 40 Zerglings, and you're like, oh no! You know, because the player's kind of just blindly building these units, but not actually using them correctly. So I think it's something where there's always a balancing act, and it's something every player needs to engage critically with. So every time we get into this sort of discussion about StarCraft, it's so funny, right? Because there's always one player who says, I did that thing you said and it didn't work. What you're selling is bullshit. Like what you're teaching people is bullshit. You're crap. It didn't make me win games. And that basically fundamentally tells me that person's looking at StarCraft wrong, because it's all about being flexible and adjusting to the situation. And if you're just kind of looking for something to blindly follow to win games, you need to go play a different video game. I love StarCraft and I want more people to play. But if you don't want to actually use your own brain power to break down the situations you're in or try to learn, maybe play co-op. Maybe play team games, because you're just not going to have that good a time in 1v1 ladder if you just want to follow a blind, do this same thing every game, right? I mean, you can do that to a certain extent with certain things. You can have structures you do every game, but you definitely don't want to be just relying on following a build order blindly and never adapting. You want to always be reacting, especially as a Zerg player.
Okay, so...
Alright, so basically it's just drone a lot when nothing's happening, and overreact when something is coming your way.
That's probably the best way to summarize what I just blabbered about for like 8 minutes. Thank you.
Alright, so this game,
That is like one sentence.
basically, okay, the question for this game was,
Whose point of view are we on?
we are from Zerg's point of view.
Okay.
And it was about playing against defensive Terran.
Okay,
and
cool.
so that's like, so far it's been kind of early, and there's been some kind of early skirmishes. But the main question is about how do I play against the Terran in a really good defensive position.
Yeah, and this is Mech from the Terran as well. So
Yeah.
what we see here is very classic, no scouting, no clear game plan, right? So what our orangutan or orangutantrum has done here is scout with the army, and this is like such a common mistake players make. They're like sitting in their corner of the map. It's all dark. Let's go back really far. Sorry. It's all dark. It's all dark. We're just defending. You know what? Defended okay, but no third base. Like having this really delayed third. Didn't really have many overlords around the base.
Roach speed.
Yeah, roach speed got forgotten. But it's one of these things where orangutantrum basically then just says, I'm just going to scout with my army. So first of all, where was the
It's
overlord
okay if you
scout
have like
early on?
lings and fast roaches, but not if you have slow roaches.
Even then, it's like you should be looking for a little bit more map vision, right? So first of all, orangutantrum doesn't even go across the map with an early overlord. So there's a big vision problem going on because orangutantrum's playing completely blind all game long. Has no idea what's going. Now, I'm okay with someone sending the second overlord past your natural, like move to the natural and then move into position. But you need to get your overlords into position. What league is this one, by the way? Is this one Platinum?
This one is Platinum, yes.
It is Platinum. Cool. Looks like Platinum play. In that there's like some really good things going on. Definitely like, you know, there's big steps up from Silver, but there's a few fundamentals still missing. This overlord should be going to the pervert pillar. So Zergs, remember, you are a creepy race. Not only do you spread creep, but you creep on your opponents. There is always, on pretty much every map...
There's no
Well,
pervert overlord spot.
I mean, usually they don't spot from the high ground, the one right on their natural, though. So you can normally camp there and get away with it. But on this map, this is a pure, beautiful pervert pillar. If you sit on this, they can only spot it if they have an air unit nearby, guys. So always leave an overlord here. You see everything in their natural expansion. And you should always have your second overlord go across to next to the main. Now, why that? Because Terran always walls off. And they always build their production here because they swap their add-ons around. So all their production needs to be close. So if your overlord comes in from here to here at about 4 minutes, roughly, about 4 minutes, you get some scouting and you see what you're up against. Whereas early on in this game, Orangutantrum basically doesn't scout until this first Zergling comes in. Now, first things first, it's 3 minutes 30. What if there was like proxy barracks here? We would have no idea. A bunch of Marines could come in and we'd just lose the game. Okay, so super all-in cheeses would catch us out because we didn't send the overlord to check the natural. But so many other weird options could happen as well. And only at this point do we see Hellions And then we kind of, go for the roach tech and that sort of thing. We also see, there could have been a third base down already, a lot of money floating. So a lot of Zergs don't go for the third, and they say, oh, but I keep losing it. Who cares? It's got 1,500 hit points. If your opponent wastes their time with a Reaper and a few Hellions hitting a 1,500 hit point structure, you are in the clear. You are feeling good, my friends. So the biggest problem Zergs have is otherwise that money is sitting here doing nothing. You're better off spending it on something like a hatchery, and actually getting that up early. And this is the biggest problem players have, is they think of a hatchery as this big exposed weakness. The hatchery on its own is a big beefy production structure that happens to be a little bit further out on the map. That's fine. And if it dies, it's not the end of the world. It's only 300 minerals. If you drone it, that's when it's an exposed point you actually need to defend. But until you drone that third base, which happens minutes and minutes after it's finished usually, you don't actually need to focus too hard on defending it. So we see a lot of money floating in Orangutantrim's opening. I think Overlords having vision would definitely give a little bit more confidence here for Orangutantrim. Try to engage with what the opponent's doing. Try to understand at least the basics here. If we had an Overlord, we'd be like, oh, cool, there's a third CC. We know this guy's playing an economic game. Like, we know he's not going to do the craziest all-in where he's got, like, 3 factories pumping Cyclones and Hellions right now or something crazy. So that Overlord vision is huge. Always taking a faster third base is huge as well. These things are just so necessary in your game plan. And the question itself was about breaking a defensive player, but we did leave all our Zerglings there. We should have just had one spotting Zergling outside the base. So what you've got to remember...
cancel the third.
And cancel
Okay,
the third
Actually,
unnecessarily
if
as
I
well.
for a moment,
Yeah.
we have a question
Zerg
from-
had a lot of roaches. They could have defended the third.
We got a question from chat regarding scouting. Is it worth at low level to invest in burrow and place burrowed Zerglings all over the map as hidden observers?
Not really, because it takes so much APM. Like, if you really get a buzz off that, I am a big fan of anything that makes you really happy in StarCraft and makes you feel, like, happy and disgusting. Do it! Because, like, it's what motivates you to play, is doing the cool moves, right? But I wouldn't rush to it. So maybe once you've got you've got your third starting to mine heavily, you've kind of got defense and stuff. Once you get towards the 8-minute mark, like the mid game, yeah, go for burrow and burrow Zerglings, but don't be like opening up your first 100 gas into burrow, your first 20 Zerglings burrowing on the map. Once you're established, you can afford it because it's a smaller investment relative to where your economy is at. Just don't rush to it, and it's a good move. So that's a really cool one. Thanks.
66 drones.
66 drones? Yeah, I mean, 66 drones. You don't need to be quite at 66 drones when you start burrow, but that's, as long as you're getting a good bunch of drones on your third, you're nice and healthy.
It's basically a time where you can start doing your thing.
Yeah.
And you have econ.
So,
Okay, so I'll head out. Have a
sorry,
nice stream.
I want to quickly break this game down because we're getting to the key point, which is how do you play against a defensive player? So the problem for Orangutantrim is Orangutantrim has no idea what he's playing against, what they are playing against. We don't know. Could be a girl. So Orangutantrim basically is having an issue at this stage of the game. The problem that's going on is Orangutantrim scouting with the army. So right now, Orangutantrim's economy is not great because of that delayed third we talked about earlier, right? Could have defended that attack and still had a third up and way more drones right now. But what's the game plan? What's going on? I don't think Orangutantrim knows what the game plan is, knows what they're up against, or knows what they're fighting against. So I feel like this is definitely a very reactive Zerg player. Tries to play to the situation from what I see in the way this build works. But I don't really see any sort of baseline build. And I don't see the scouting to be able to play reactive and make educated decisions. Right now, looking at this, I would say we're massing roaches off 41 drones. This is a big timing attack. Even if we drone behind it, we need to do damage here because the Terran is higher than workers. Add mules to that. Look at the income difference. 800 minerals a minute. That's a lot more stuff Terran's building. But you know what? This is totally fine because Terran's playing Mech. It's this immobile composition. What does Terran have right now? 3 tanks and 2 cycles. This is not an army that can do much. But Orangutantrim's like, well, I don't even know what I'm going up against. And decides to scout with the army before roach speed is done. You should never scout with your army. If you want to, you send a single Zergling or an Overseer or a single roach ahead and you kind of evaluate the situation you're in. And if you're committing to this sort of roach attack, you 100% try to kind of hide your army or keep it back until roach speed comes in. This two-pronged attack is such an amazing idea and could work so well. but half of the roaches died before the fight began, and roach speed just wasn't done. Didn't actually know the position we were going into. So this is something where just a little bit more planning and decisiveness, a bit more scouting ahead of the army, as well as just having those overlord spotters early, would have made such a big difference in this game. And it would have allowed Orangutan to be in a good spot. As it is, yes, there's a big problem with spending money back at home. It's bigger for the Terran, but it's a big economic deficit, and it's a really bad position to be in at this stage.
So, I think Zerg knows that it's Mech as soon as they see Cyclones. Like, I don't think Bio ever built Cyclone Hellions. I never heard of it.
It's rare. Usually,
It's a safe assumption.
As a general rule, yes. But I mean, you should still be scouting and seeing the position.
Yes, I think the
see if
Perv
there's a third
Overlord-
down, Perv Overlord, Overseer afterwards as well. Like, you should always confirm, because there's different types of mech, right? This guy could be going 3 Starport Banshee. After that, that's actually something people do
That's true.
after Cyclone timings. It could be 3 reactors, Mass Cyclone Hellbat, just coming for another YOLO wave, right? You never know. So it's always good, and even if it is just the most straightforward mech, we want to see the positioning, right? We want to see what's going on. But definitely a good point. You can usually tell it's mech if they're hitting you with Cyclone Hellbat. Very good chance. Orangutan says, okay, so yeah, you're absolutely correct. Post layer tech, I don't actually have a game plan. So, I mean, it totally comes down to how you want to play Orangutantrum. But right now, the economy is really small for you. So the big thing you want to focus on is, well, if I'm playing to the later stages, I got to get up to that 66 drones, the 3 bases saturated earlier. Roach Hydra is a good composition that works in just about every situation, but you need upgrades as well. If we're going to go to that stage, we should have double Evo chamber, right? So it's either really execute that all-in decisively with the 40, 45 drone Roach speed timing, or get the double upgrades, get the Hydra in. We should have had the 3rd saturated minutes earlier, had the gases there, go up to Roach Hydra. Now, against Mech, Vipers is an amazing option. I've done videos, there's dailies on my YouTube channel about, using Vipers against Mech. I've done coaching sessions with pro gamers on it as well on my YouTube channel. I've done it with Winter as well. We've done so much verse Mech in the last 6 months. It's actually crazy the amount of verse Mech videos on my YouTube. If you go through the last few months, you can find a lot. Just search my channel for Mech. And there'll be plenty of stuff on there about fighting it as a Zerg. And it really comes down to your way of playing, but it's about having a clear game plan. And I'm a big fan of you decide your own game plan in StarCraft, and you decide how you want to play. The problem here is you hadn't made a decision. And what do we say, guys? It's always better to be a Chad, go in there with your chest puffed out, your biceps flaring, and act like a moron, and do it confidently, than it is to be beta in your strategy and be like, oh, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Which we all fall into in StarCraft. We go, I'm not sure if this is the right decision, but it's better to confidently execute an average choice or a bad choice than it is to and ah and kind of be indecisive. Because the moment you're indecisive, you execute a lot worse. Like in this case, it's like, okay, well, we're kind of droning up to a big roach force, but we've forgotten the upgrades because we didn't have the decisive game plan. We kind of got forced to this stage, and we're doing some really cool attempted roach maneuvers, and this can work great against some players. It's not going to work against a Mech guy who is also a bit of a D-bag. Good on you. Boston Maru is a name I've seen before. Is it you watching Boston Maru? I'm pretty sure this guy comes to my chat sometimes. Being a bit BM there. Your opponent's desperately trying to beat your Mech, and you're being a bit of a D-bag. Come on, guys.
We got another question that's possibly related to this. As
sure.
a general rule, when are swarm hosts good and when are they bad? I love the unit, but sometimes they feel ineffective.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, swarm hosts are not really, they're an efficiency unit. So basically, the thing is, it's very hard to use swarm hosts efficiently if you either don't, if you're not good at creep spread, or you're not using a Nidus worm with them, because they're so slow they can get caught off creep. You can still make them work some games, but it becomes a lot riskier because they're so slow off creep, right? So number one is, okay, swarm hosts are great if we either have creep getting close to their base, or is that? How do you use swarm hosts? You use them to hit their economy. The advantage of the swarm host is it's a free flying unit. So if we look at this game, for instance, how cool would it be if 20 Mutalisks flew into the main base? That would just kill all the production. It would kill everything. That's what locusts achieve. They find angles to throw their flying locusts into angles that aren't defended. They come down here, throw a whole bunch of locusts into this base, clear out the whole economy. So swarm hosts are good at finding angles where your opponent isn't normally defending from and doing massive damage in waves. But there's a long
Swarm hosts are
cooldown.
good on the attack.
Yeah, they're good on the attack. You don't want to use them on the defense. So the way a player counters Swarmos is they threaten and they force you to use your Locusts defensively. You throw your Locusts and their army just runs away. The Locusts disappear and they say, guess what? 30 seconds till you can do that again. And they do it, you know, and they keep you using the Locust defensively. But the moment Locusts find their way into the production line or the economy, or sometimes if you're good at microing onto a mech army, if they find it onto siege tanks with no Hellbats defending them, then they do great damage. So Swarmos are a very high level unit to use. It's really fun. But you're not going to get it the first time trying them. It takes a bunch of, you know, games with them to really get the rhythm down of keep finding new angles to throw the Locusts in, make sure you don't get them trapped, spread the creep or use the Nidus worms to support them. They're a really cool unit that just gets insane efficiency over time, but, you know, you've got to be very flexible and adjustable, a very strategic unit. Speaking of those Mutalisks, here we go, hey? Cool. So, I gotta go to the bathroom. Real quick, so I'm just gonna leave this locked on this cam. Now, after this replay, I'm gonna do a few demonstration
the replay
matches.
is over in 10 seconds.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm sorry. I love you, Orangutantrum, but this is the second time we get to watch Mutas explode, and it's always funny to watch Mutas explode. The Shredder and the Thor combo. Remember the Thor attack is 4 16 damage to light attacks, but that becomes 4 18 damage attacks with the Shredder. Wait, is it? No, it's 3, right? It's 3 armor, so 19. Oh my god. And obviously we're already behind at this point. It's just fun to watch the fireworks of Mutalisk explode. But GG, well played, dude. Definitely, yeah. Choosing a clear game plan, you know, whether that be commit hard to the roach timing and execute it a lot better, whether it be go roach, hydro, viper, that's going to really help you out. But what's going to help you even more, Orangutantrum? Get those overlords in position. Keep those scouting units scout ahead of your army all the time, and that alone, if you can work that into all your games, you will level up as a player like so hard. So good luck, friend. Thanks for submitting the replay. I'm gonna go into a few customs next. So for you guys who are helping me out, thank you so much, by the way. We got